Imagine this. Kodak was a cultural symbol at one point, not only a business. They caught your family holidays, first steps, and every turning point in between. Kodak dominated the photography scene. They were the scene itself, but today the moniker that used to represent creativity and nostalgia is a warning story. How could a firm who invented contemporary photography lose all? What happened so wrong that, in the face of change, Kodak, the titan of its day, collapsed to its knees? Let's expose the ascent, the decline, and the errors that turned Kodak's empire into historical memory. Kodak's golden age rules the motion picture sector. George Eastman's first simple, portable camera with the tagline, "You press the button, we do the rest," launched Kodak's path to become a titan in industry in 1888. This invention transformed photography such that it could be accessed by common people instead of only experts. Kodak built a whole ecosystem including film, paper, and chemicals, thereby making photography profitable and convenient. Not only selling cameras, Kodak made significant earnings at every level by developing a vertically integrated company strategy, thereby controlling the photography process from beginning to end. Through its marketing, the brand also concentrated on forging an emotional connection with consumers, coining the term Kodak Moments to firmly establish itself in the shared memory of families all around. Kodak's supremacy was unmatched during the middle of the 20th century. One of the most well-known and trusted companies worldwide by the 1970s and 1980s, they controlled an estimated 90% of the US movie market and 85% of camera purchases. The company's emphasis on invention also included formats like Kodachrome, a groundbreaking film offering vivid, high-quality photos. Kodak's success came from being a cultural symbol rather than from products. From family anniversaries to significant historical events, Kodak was there, woven into the fabric of daily life. Although this golden age seemed unbreakable, Kodak's relentless dependence on its old model would turn out to be its biggest flaw when the photographic business started to change. The revolution in digital photography, a warning disregarded. Kodak engineer Steve Sasson made a groundbreaking discovery in 1975 when he developed the first digital camera, essentially transforming photography. Though black and white photographs kept on a cassette tape, the camera was crude by today's standards. Still, it highlighted the direction of photography. But Kodak's leadership, focused on their profitable film company, discounted the invention. Fearing it would eat away their main income from film sales, which made up most of the company's earnings, they shelved digital technologies. Kodak stuck to its conventional business model. Instead of welcoming this invention, sure that film would remain the predominant media for years to come. This turnabout turned out to be a major error. Competitors, including Sony, Canon, and Nikon, embraced digital photography during the late 1990s and early 2000s and started marketing premium digital cameras that drew interest in the market. Kodak paused as well, seeing digital technology as a specialty rather than a change across the board. The business did not foresee how fast consumer behavior would change, as consumers were drawn by the instant satisfaction and convenience that digital photography offered. Kodak's unwillingness to change with the digital revolution let rivals control the market, therefore preparing the ground for the brand's ultimate falloff. Overdependence on film, Kodak's comfort zone, built on its supremacy in the film industry, a position it had maintained for decades. Kodak's business plan was, the company's income sources mostly came from the sales of film, photographic paper, and related products, therefore establishing an ecosystem whereby earnings were linked to one technology. Kodak kept depending on film sales while the digital revolution got steam in the late 1990s, since it thought its legacy product would always be the benchmark for photography. Kodak was blinded to the tectonic changes in customer choices and technological breakthroughs by this overdependence on film. Kodak stayed to the comfort of its current income sources, instead of aggressively investing in the digital sphere when the market started leaning toward digital photography. Kodak was less competitive since they gave film sales top priority even when they unveiled digital cameras by imposing premium prices for their digital products. Their unwillingness to venture beyond their comfort zone reflected their reluctance to commit totally to digital photography. Kodak was caught in a declining market as customer demand for films dropped, losing relevance and market share to more flexible rivals. Their failure to expand and grow beyond movies finally undermined their position and hastened their collapse. Not enough, too late, failed digital transition. Kodak finally realized it had to enter the digital photography scene, but the change was badly handled and full of strategic mistakes. Kodak introduced digital cameras, but neglected to price them competitively since they worried about eating their profitable film business. Kodak's digital cameras were considered as poor, with less features and less appeal than those of rivals like Sony and Canon. Instead of emphasizing innovation and producing high-quality products that would challenge those of such companies, Kodak lost more ground in the digital race by giving short-term revenues top priority above long-term adaptation. In an attempt to counterbalance dwindling film revenues, Kodak also sought diversity into digital printing. These businesses failed to attract much attention on the market, even as they brought picture kiosks and printers. Against well-known companies like HP and Epson, Kodak lacked the technological edge and brand positioning needed to win in this market. Their digital approach also lacked clarity. Instead of dedicating entirely to digital photography, they tried to mix film with digital products, therefore distributing their resources too thinly. The market had already shifted by the time Kodak embraced digital, leaving them trying to find relevance in a sector they formerly dominated. Their late and inadequate digital shift turned into a major contributing reason to their collapse. Strategic mistakes and financial mismanagement. Kodak's demise resulted from incorrect policies and poor financial management in addition to technological stagnation. Kodak made significant investments in acquisitions and non-related ventures, including healthcare imaging and document management throughout its shift to digital, away from its main focus on photography. These outlays of funds stretched the company's resources and produced meager returns. Kodak stretched itself thin, distorting attention and money from their main business instead of leveraging their financial might to innovate and land a commanding presence in the digital photography scene. Furthermore, lacking a clear future vision was Kodak's leadership. Over this crucial period, the corporation passed several CEOs with different agendas and approaches. This inconsistency left the business reacting instead being proactive in handling developments in the sector. Kodak tried to straddle both markets, therefore diluting their efforts, instead of completely committing to digital innovation and accepting the inevitable fall-off of film. Mounting debt and declining profitability worsened their problems even more, leaving Kodak unprepared to face more focused, leaner rivals. The rise of smartphones, the last nail in the coffin. Kodak's already precarious situation suffered a deadly blow as it battled to adjust to the digital revolution with the emergence of cell phones. Offering built-in, high-quality cameras, products like the iPhone and Android phones started to transform photography by the late 2000s. For consumers, cell phones combined cost, convenience, and the capacity to rapidly record, edit, and distribute pictures, all in one gadget. The change was quick. Standing-alone digital and film cameras lost relevance. Smartphone makers also used newly developed social networking sites like Facebook and Instagram, which pushed consumers to distribute images digitally instead of printing them, a business Kodak had long depended on. Kodak's products grew outdated as businesses such as Apple and Samsung emerged as the new leaders in the photographic industry. For one of the most recognizable brands in history, Kodak filed for bankruptcy by 2012, marking the end of a chapter. Patent mismanagement, the lost gold mine. In 1975, a young Kodak engineer named Steve Sasson created something that could have changed Kodak's fate forever, the world's first digital camera. It was a bulky device that captured black and white images and stored them on a cassette tape. Sasson excitedly demonstrated his invention to Kodak's executives, believing it was the future of photography. But instead of celebrating the breakthrough, Kodak's leadership dismissed it. "That's cute," one executive reportedly said, "but don't tell anyone about it." Why? Because Kodak wasn't in the camera business. It was in the film business. They feared digital photography would kill their golden goose, film sales, which made up nearly 80% of their revenue at the time. Despite their hesitation, Kodak knew they had a revolutionary technology in their hands. So in 1978, they quietly patented their digital camera design. Over the next 2 decades, Kodak would go on to file over 1,000 patents related to digital imaging, many of them groundbreaking. They had the keys to the future, but they refused to use them. As the 1990s approached, companies like Sony, Canon, and Nikon aggressively invested in digital cameras. In 2001, digital camera sales surpassed film cameras for the first time. Kodak finally tried to monetize its patents, but instead of using them to innovate, they started suing competitors for patent violations. While they won lawsuits and secured $3 billion in settlements, it wasn't enough to save them. In 2012, drowning in debt, Kodak filed for bankruptcy. To stay afloat, they sold 1,100 digital imaging patents to companies like Apple, Google, and Facebook for just $525 million, a fraction of their true worth. The rise of competitors. For most of the 20th century, Kodak was the undisputed king of photography, holding 90% of the US film market and dominating camera sales worldwide. But as the industry changed, another player emerged from the shadows, Fujifilm, a Japanese company that had been steadily growing since its founding in 1934. The 1984 Los Angeles Olympics was a turning point. Kodak, the official sponsor of almost every major event before, was blindsided when Fuji outbid them and secured the sponsorship deal. Suddenly, Fuji was on every billboard, every camera booth, and every advertisement. It was a bold, aggressive move that signaled Fuji's intent. They weren't just a competitor, they were a serious threat. Fuji did what Kodak refused to do. They embraced digital photography early. While Kodak hesitated, fearing that digital would cannibalize their lucrative film business, Fuji invested in R&D, developing advanced digital cameras and film technologies. By the 1990s, Fuji was producing cheaper, high-quality film that rivaled Kodak's, and they weren't afraid to undercut prices. Kodak made another critical mistake, ignoring global markets. While they focused on US dominance, Fuji expanded aggressively into Europe and Asia, securing retail partnerships and government contracts. In 1996, Fuji launched the Nexia film system, an innovation that appealed to a younger, tech-savvy audience. Kodak, still clinging to outdated models, struggled to keep up. By the early 2000s, Kodak was bleeding market share while Fuji was thriving. Marketing blunders, failing to resonate with a new generation. In the 1990s, Kodak was still a household name, but a storm was brewing. The younger generation was rapidly embracing digital technology, yet Kodak's marketing remained stuck in the past. A key moment of failure came in 2005 when Kodak launched its Easy Share digital camera campaign. The product itself wasn't bad, but the messaging missed the mark. Instead of positioning Easy Share as a futuristic, must-have device, Kodak focused on traditional family-oriented marketing, failing to capture the excitement that brands like Sony, Canon, and Apple were generating. Young consumers didn't want a camera that felt like something their parents would use. They wanted sleek, cutting-edge devices that connected to their growing digital lifestyles. Meanwhile, Apple was revolutionizing the industry. In 2007, Steve Jobs unveiled the first iPhone, boasting a built-in camera that let users snap, store, and instantly share their pictures. Kodak had the resources to compete, yet its marketing remained anchored in print photos and physical albums. The company failed to see that social media, not printed photographs, would become the new way people preserved their memories. By the early 2010s, Kodak's irrelevance became painfully clear. While competitors like Instagram, founded in 2010, were redefining photography, Kodak was still trying to convince people to print their pictures. By 2012, Kodak filed for bankruptcy, proving one harsh truth: a brand that refuses to evolve will be left behind, no matter how iconic it once was. Retail distribution mistakes, losing shelf space and visibility. In the 1990s, Kodak was everywhere: grocery stores, pharmacies, and electronics retailers. Walking into a Walmart or Best Buy, you'd see Kodak cameras and film dominating the shelves. But as digital photography surged, Kodak made a fatal mistake. It failed to secure prime retail space for its new digital products. By the early 2000s, competitors like Sony, Canon, and Nikon aggressively pushed their digital cameras into stores, offering better margins to retailers. Meanwhile, Kodak, still clinging to film, was losing its visibility. Kodak's narrative reminds us strongly that change is inevitable for every business, no matter how famous or strong. Kodak today is a lesson for companies all around. Innovation waits for no one, and those that fail to change run the danger of being behind others. We appreciate you traveling with us through Kodak's peak and collapse. Remember to like, comment on, and subscribe if you like this video. Tell us in the comments, what do you believe to be the main lessons learned from Kodak's collapse?